everyone, welcome. My name is Joyce, Kofi, Senior Officer Volunteering Development at the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies, IFRC. Moderating with me today is my colleague Virginie, Troit, the Director of the French Red Cross Foundation. I just want to bring a few things to your attention, some housekeeping notes. So this session will be recorded. And we ask participants not to take pictures of the screen or participants without their permission. If slides are posted on the share screen, the speaker should inform the participants if they will receive the slides. Just to let you know that this session is also available in English, French, and Spanish. Also, please use the chat to send your comments and questions. Thank you so much for being part of our first ever edition of a long night of research. It's amazing to learn of the legendary work the reference centers are doing and supporting the work and mandate of the Red Cross Red Crescent. When we started this adventure 3 years ago, we were not sure how it was going to take shape. But here we are, having succeeded in launching this dialogue between the academics, the volunteers, and staff. Thanks to the collaboration between the Volunteering Alliance, the RC3, and the Federation volunteering team for making this possible. And we believe you have had an enriching time of sharing and learning, and you have so many takeaways. Before we give the floor to our speakers, I would like to ask Virginie if she has some remarks. Virginie, over to you.
Thanks, Joyce. Yes, then maybe just a bit of live reporting from those last 24 hours. The registrations kept up growing for a total of about 750 this morning, and actually transformed into real engagement. On our 23 session, whatever the time and the country, we counted between 15 to 50 participants, which equal to about 500 visits. So I think the RC3 members never expected, such a curiosity and appetite to learn and share about volunteering through research. So we have here a very good sign that we are going into the right direction, even if we need to improve many aspects. And the event was truly international. We had about registration from 65 countries this morning, well distributing on all the continents, with a slight record for the Americas, I must say. And what is amazing is the participation of volunteers, who represented around 55% of registration this morning. So this conversation between volunteers, staff, and research team and reference center worked. On a more qualitative side, I could say that we created this long night spirit that we wanted. I was last night at a session organized, for example, by Gabrielle Pictet and Karen Beek on the Moti project. So it was really late, and the discussion was really deep and interesting we had colleagues from Peru, from Lebanon, Tunis, and, the little lamp we did on this one, actually, no, this one, no, the one above my head. It's really what it was about. And, Geneva stopped, and then they handed it over, to Costa Rica at midnight with a super well attended session. And the session were very complementary, and the content was very dense. What we observe is that a high demand from the participant from learning more and stay connected. They ask for publication linked to the research presented. They ask also to be able to view the session in replay. So now we are going to work and see how we can bring our support to make sure that all the knowledge share will be accessible and useful. And we will keep, of course, all the participants up to date. Well, I would like to take this opportunity, Joyce, if you give me 2 minutes before we give the floor to our distinguished speakers for thank you, because we had almost no resource for this project. So it's only worked on the power of collaboration that works so well in our movement. So I really want to thank the 15 members of RC3 who co-organized this 2-year-long project and these events with creativity and methods. Also to the 26 National Society who contributed to the event, to our academic colleagues who never hesitate to take from their time to contribute to an RCRC event. Thank you to the CADRIM in Trinidad and Tobago and the foundation teams who really helped a lot with logistics and technology. And huge thanks to the IFRC teams in Geneva and also in the region for their outstanding support and inspiration since 2020. To the Volunteering Alliance, of course, for being so collaborative and enthusiastic. Thanks to the RC3 support partners. Without you, we could not make as much. So I want to mention the Global Disaster Preparedness Center and the American Red Cross, the Turkish Red Crescent Academy, the Norwegian and French Red Cross, and of course to the Turkish Red Crescent Steering Committee, Omar Abu Samra that you heard yesterday, Burkay Durak, Fiona Terry, Nicole Ogland, and you, Frank. You were always here with us at the steering committee. And at last, a huge thanks to Louise Baumad, who coordinated with an amazing professionalism this event, beside doing her PhD work, and that's very hard. And to Nesrine for outstanding coordination support to RC3. What next? So the RC3 will organize its global research workshops in September, kindly hosted by the Turkish Red Crescent Academy. It will be the opportunity to learn from this fascinating interactive 24 hours experience. If you think that it's worth to think about a second edition of this long night of research, your feedback will be precious. Thanks a lot. It's up to, I give you the floor, Joyce.
Thank you so much, Virginie. And yeah, I echo your thanks to all the members who made this possible. At this point, I would like to introduce our speakers for the closing ceremony. Next slide, please. Next. Yes, so we have Dr. Asha Mohammed, Secretary General of the Kenya Red Cross. The Kenya Red Cross hosts the International Center for Humanitarian Affairs, ICHA, which is one of the first Red Cross Red Crescent reference centers. We have Mr. Diego Tippin, President of the Argentina Red Cross. The Argentina Red Cross hosts the Humanitario Observatorio, which is the Humanitarian Observatory. It's a center that seeks to promote understanding and addressing the different situations that emerge in society from a humanitarian perspective. We do have Mr. Philippe da Costa, also President of the French Red Cross. The French Red Cross hosts the French Red Cross Foundation, which is a National Society reference center dedicated to humanities and social sciences research in the humanitarian and social action fields, and the Global First Aid Center, one of the first global reference centers as well. Then we have Miss Vicki Mao. She's the co-chair of the movement's Migration Leadership Group and director of the Australian programs of the Australian Red Cross. And we will have Mr. Frank Mohrhauer, who is the director of the National Society Development Services at the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. I would like to call on Dr. Asha, who is our first speaker, to give us her remarks. Thank you, Dr. Asha.
Thank you very much, Joyce. Thank you, colleagues, and thank you very much for this opportunity to be able to participate. So I think for me, it's really just looking at how we are linking research and action in our movement, and say that I think we've come a long way, and we really want to appreciate all those that have been involved in getting us to where we are today. For For those of us who have been in the movement for some time, we can actually appreciate and see the progress that has been made. Not only, of course, bringing the issue of research into the forefront of what we do, but also the collaboration that has happened between the different entities, whether it's with the national societies, but with the IFRC as well, and also with universities and other academic institutions. So I think it's important to recognize the milestones that have been made, and I think we have some good practices that need to be shared, across board to ensure that this becomes also part of the way of our work. So with rapidly changing ecology, urbanization, climate change, and fragile public health systems, we all agree that disasters have become more frequent, more complex, and even harder to prevent and contain. I can confirm, for example, today in Kenya, we have been having a devastating drought in the last 4 years and started to receive some rains in the last few days, unfortunately, expecting that to also give us relief from the drought, but instead it is also now causing even more destruction, displacing hundreds of, thousands of families, and of course destroying crop and other assets. So of course at such times, many solutions are provided, but they can only be successful with the trust, support, and acceptance of the people. This is an opportunity for humanitarian actors to increase impact while reducing inefficiency through evidence-based and data-driven practices. For a very long time within the Red Cross, I used to say that we are very good at our qualitative part of the work, but clearly we have a lot in terms of really being able to bring out data and evidence that can inform what we do, but also can actually be shared with other organizations. And we know many organizations will always run fast to the Red Cross because they know we are on the ground and we are able to really collect and bring this data forward. So understanding the root causes of disasters, the impact, and how response actions may fuel some of these trust issues among local communities is key to creating the strategies to rebuild trust and ensure recovery and resilience. So investing in research can play a very critical role in equipping our decision-making, both at programmatic and policy level, with the high quality evidence that is needed to improve efficiency, maximize resources, and address complex challenges. For example, the implementation of anticipatory action in protracted drought, ensuring accountability and encouraging innovation while implementing programs in the humanitarian sector. As I said, every day we have a vast amount of evidence that is being generated that is relevant to humanitarian actors, much of it through research by academics and practitioners. But the challenge comes with understanding what evidence is relevant to our circumstances, where to find it, and how to assess its quality. Bridging the gap between research and practice is therefore critical to ensure the uptake of the research finding. So it means we need to integrate research-generated evidence with expert judgment and stakeholder input. Through a team of climate scientists, data scientists, innovation experts, and policy and advocacy experts, the International Center for Humanitarian Affairs at the Kenya Red Cross Society is working to bridge the gap between local and international communities in the humanitarian action through generating evidence-based information to inform effective humanitarian programming and decision-making. In our work, we help to build the argument that research-generated evidence is key, while acknowledging that for good decisions, of course, we need expert judgment and stakeholder input to also be part of the decision-making process. There are many examples that we could share in terms of what we are working on, but maybe just to highlight a few that the Kenya Red Cross has taken the proactive step of developing the anticipatory action roadmap for Kenya. This roadmap represents a new way of thinking about disaster risk management. The issue of development of data and information management systems that can support research, for example, our volunteer management system. These data can help us understand the dynamics of volunteering, identify effective strategies for recruiting and retaining volunteers, and also improving the overall impact of volunteering on communities and individuals. We have beneficiary management systems, emergency operation data centers, and also community risk assessment frameworks. There's also the question of strengthening our devolution and collaboration with government, where we are looking at strengthening and working with the public in terms of public participation, citizen engagement at county and government processes, where we are supporting linking of the community action planning with the planning at government level. And so research on how humanitarian partners can work with national and county governments effectively. Localization is key. And I think this is something that we also, of course, even within the Red Cross Red Crescent movement, it is something that we all are pushing and really looking forward to ensuring that it gains sufficient ground. So strengthening the capacity of Kenya Red Cross branches to position themselves as local actors, working with local civil society organizations to also strengthen their capacities to apply for global and international resources. And also the question of research and learning on decolonization and localization in the humanitarian sector. Some of the areas where we have worked even with some of the other national societies, for example, the British Red Cross. For us, of course, there have been many learnings that we have been able to get from these initiatives. And this, I think, for me, are critical that we continue to share amongst ourselves so that we can ensure research uptake. For us, some of it that I can share is, for example, in terms of engagement with stakeholders. So we know that researchers and practitioners sometimes may have their own different ways of thinking and working, but to enable coherent dialogue, communication with stakeholders is key. And this does not need to wait until the results are published, but should start from the very beginning when the research questions are also being elaborated. So for us, the social mediators, that is the policy and advocacy team, is critical in supporting the research during the entire process. And once the results are issued, work with the public sector to see where they can make things change. While conducting research, there is often a discrepancy as well between the expectations of the researcher, the final users, and the community. And funding to conduct action-based research helps to pilot interventions which can be scalable or applicable to other contexts, thereby leading to better outcomes for everyone who is involved. In terms of community-centered approaches, we've seen community participatory research approaches that are effective in developing local culturally aligned solutions and practice changes which are not researcher nor policy maker led, but where you have active engagement of the community itself and the local leadership, which facilitates the acceptability of the study and also the development of the action plans. And then, of course, the question of fostering sustainable partnerships, which, like I earlier mentioned, that yes, working with academia, accredited research institutions, government, and other existing power dimensions ensures that these partnerships are built on mutual trust, respect, and shared goals. And by establishing a shared vision and through the collaborative efforts of various stakeholders, then the supportive research systems can be established. Maybe just a few words in terms of why this could be important, according to our experience, to have a Red Cross Red Crescent network dedicated to research, evidence-based knowledge, and science. Generally, the ultimate goal of humanitarian research is to improve the lives of the affected people. From our experience, having a robust network dedicated to research is crucial for several reasons. One is the question of capacity strengthening, and with the support from advanced institutions like the Climate Center and 510, national societies are able to build capacity of their data and climate research units, and thereby fostering local research action within the movement. In terms of advocacy, the Red Cross Red Crescent Network has supported raising awareness of the need for evidence-based interventions and policies, as a good example where we have the focus-based financing, data protection and responsibility, community engagement, and accountability. This advocacy also helps us to be able to secure funding that will then, in return, support even more research. The issue of strengthening our decision-making So by utilizing scientific evidence, we have been able to make informed decisions about how to allocate resources through risk analysis, respond to emergencies, and then plan for the future. Innovation is very key, and therefore it helps in promoting innovation. The Red Cross Red Crescent Network provides a platform to test new approaches and technologies and explore how they can be applied to improve the delivery of aid. For example, the issue of dignified identities, which we have been able to also lead in the country, has become a critical part of what we do, and something that other organizations are also looking up to. The 121 platform to manage cash and voucher assistance programs, and of course, the focus-based financing. We also need to talk about, of course, how to improve the research profile of the movement, whereby the Red Cross becomes a partner of choice in implementation of research projects that generates new knowledge, addressing complex humanitarian challenges and building partnerships. To conclude, just to say that for me, some of the expectation from such a network to support national societies in the future will be to see that national societies are partnering in conducting research on emerging risks, that we are building and strengthening national society research capacity through incubation structures, for example, secondment and mentorship, that we are nurturing peer-to-peer support models among national societies and within the IFRC and ICRC, and that we continue to have different learning platforms through such events. And I remember Virginie asking about, whether it is important to maybe consider having another similar event in the future. And I believe, yes, I think it is critical that we continue to have different platforms where these exchanges can happen. Of course, at the global level, but maybe also within the regions, because I believe there is a lot of good practices that can continue to be shared, and also just to keep the momentum and to continue to encourage all of us and the different national societies to participate and to see that we also continue to become more and more scientific in terms of how we deliver our humanitarian action. I think I will stop here and give it back to you, Joyce. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Asha, for these insights. We would like to move to Mr. Diego Tippen to give us his remarks. Thank you very much.
¿Qué tal? Un saludo para todos los participantes que nos están mirando de todo el mundo. Agradecer en primer término la invitación tanto de la Federación Internacional como de la Cruz Roja Francesa. Como en la carta de invitación me pidieron que no hablara de fútbol, me voy a ajustar a lo solicitado y voy a pasar a hablar un poquito de la importancia de estos centros de investigación, que sin lugar a duda están siendo un cambio muy importante, clave, diría, en la forma en la que trabajamos en todo el planeta. No tengo dudas de que el movimiento puede ser el mayor y más confiable centro de investigación a nivel global, si el voluntariado se aboca también al relevamiento de información como parte de sus actividades. De este modo, podemos generar en cada una de las sociedades nacionales información basada en evidencia para la toma de decisiones. La investigación nos permite también acercar al movimiento a las comunidades bajo el enfoque de la participación comunitaria y la rendición de cuentas. Comprender las necesidades y los recursos con los que cuenta la población es de suma importancia para desarrollar intervenciones humanitarias adecuadas. Como bien decía, y lo he escuchado varias veces a nuestro secretario general, desarrollar investigaciones vinculadas a las prácticas del movimiento es un cambio de paradigma y un cambio cultural. Significa invertir los procesos, relevar datos primero para brindar asistencia humanitaria en función de las necesidades identificadas y de las estrategias planificadas. Quiero destacar o resaltar o reiterar algunos de los conceptos que escuché recién de mi colega precedente de Kenia, donde hablaba de distintos ítems, ¿no? Por un lado hablábamos de inversión, por otro lado hablábamos de trabajar justamente basado en evidencia. Nuestro voluntariado está en todo el mundo acostumbrado a relevar datos. Lo que no hacíamos muchas veces, o lo que todavía no hacemos, es hacerlo de una manera sistemática y con un fin justamente de investigación previa. Yo no tengo ninguna duda de esto que hablaba, de que esto es un cambio de paradigma y de que esto nos va a permitir todavía ser mejores en nuestro trabajo humanitario. La creación del observatorio en la Argentina significó en un principio muy poca inversión, porque era simplemente acomodar o adecuar líneas de trabajo que ya teníamos, pero de una forma mucho más metódica. Rápidamente este observatorio se convirtió en el centro de investigación más grande de la República Argentina. Y esto nos permite a nosotros dialogar tanto con las comunidades, con los gobiernos en todos los niveles, o con nuestros donantes, de una forma mucho más preparada, porque estamos hablando basado en evidencia. Esta evidencia no la hacemos solo para nuestra tarea humanitaria, que es sumamente importante. Nosotros tenemos un lema aquí en Argentina que es investigación para la acción, ¿no? Y esta acción tiene que ver con nuevas necesidades que muchas veces vamos detectando en la sociedad, de nuevas problemáticas en las que sin duda una organización como la Cruz Roja debería intervenir, y esto nos permite desarrollar nuevos planes de acción, pero también nos permite influenciar positivamente en la toma de políticas públicas. Aquí investigamos de manera permanente problemáticas asociadas a la juventud, a los adultos mayores, a la calidad de vida, a temas de salud, y eso nos permite tener un panorama único de lo que está sucediendo en estas temáticas en todo el país. Poder llevar esto a nivel global, como decía al principio, nos va a permitir ser una organización única, confiable, la única que puede generar por las características de nuestro movimiento en todo el planeta, información confiable, objetiva y neutral. Y esto también nos va a permitir a nivel global pararnos como un actor con una calidad diferenciada con respecto al resto de las organizaciones. Hablábamos de invertir, decía, por un lado, esto que tenemos que hacer en este cambio de paradigma es puertas hacia adentro de la organización, apropiarnos de estas herramientas, de saber que existen, de utilizarlas, de entender el salto de calidad que esto significa. Es muy poca la inversión que se necesita, incluso a nivel local, a nivel global. ¿Por qué? Porque generalmente nuestro movimiento ya invierte en tercerizar algunas investigaciones, en tercerizar algunas encuestas, sabiendo que estas herramientas están puertas adentro e invirtiendo esos fondos que generalmente gastamos hacia afuera, puertas adentro, ese financiamiento ya está garantizado. Pero también hay que saber que estos centros de investigaciones pueden ser, como lo está haciendo en Argentina, una fuente muy importante de ingresos y de recursos, porque estos datos hoy escasean en el mundo. Y una organización como la Cruz Roja, que viene a aportar además datos de calidad, puede resultar muy atractiva, tanto para las empresas como para el sector público. Para nosotros también nos ha permitido, más allá de esta detección de nuevas problemáticas sociales, nos ha permitido medir el impacto de lo que hacemos en el territorio. En cada actividad humanitaria que emprende hoy Cruz Roja Argentina, interviene el Observatorio Humanitario haciendo la medición de base de la situación sociosanitaria de las comunidades. Y esto nos permite, al poco tiempo, volver a medir el impacto y entender si vamos por el camino correcto, si hay que cambiar algo de lo que estamos haciendo para optimizar el resultado de lo que estamos haciendo, de los fondos y del impacto en las comunidades que generan, y nos permite tener también con base cierta el resultado final. Ya deja de ser una percepción de lo que hacemos, que lo que hacemos está bien, para hacer una realidad que podemos medir y mostrar. Vuelvo a decir, mostrar frente a las autoridades, frente al sector privado, frente al sector público y frente a los medios de comunicación. Esto ha tenido mucho impacto y ha llamado la atención de todos los grandes medios en la Argentina cada vez que hacemos la publicación a través del observatorio del resultado de nuestras actividades humanitarias. Ayer, en el marco del Día Mundial del Agua, los grandes medios de comunicación han mostrado lo que la Cruz Roja Argentina viene haciendo con las comunidades originarias en el norte de nuestro país, y el impacto que eso ha generado con muy poca inversión, y cómo cambiar realidades es posible. Y esto permite también visibilizar a nuestra organización con toda la comunidad. Así que yo aliento a todos a invertir en desarrollo, a trabajar en investigación. Esto es clave, nos va a cambiar la forma en la que trabajamos y va a mejorar el impacto que tenemos en las comunidades. Y aliento también y agradezco nuevamente a la Cruz Roja Francesa la generación de estos espacios que para nosotros son absolutamente clave. Sin ninguna duda, uno de los mayores valores agregados que tiene el movimiento de la Cruz Roja en todo el mundo es el intercambio de experiencias. Entonces, poder tener lugares como este que facilitan el acceso a la información, que nos cuentan iniciativas que se están haciendo en todo el mundo en torno a estos tópicos, es absolutamente clave y nos ayudan a acelerar los procesos de desarrollo, de investigación y de impacto. Así que agradecido nuevamente a todos por la oportunidad de contarles lo que estamos haciendo aquí casi desde el fin del mundo, que creemos puede cambiar la forma en la que trabajamos a nivel global. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Diego Tippin, for all the insights and what the Observatorio is doing. I would like to move to Mr. Philippe da Costa, President of the French Red Cross, to give us his remarks. Thank you very much, Mr. da Costa.
Joyce, President Philippe da Costa is at the moment right now on the field with our volunteers. He's connecting, but maybe it will take a couple of other minutes. I will ask maybe Mr. Zephyr Dessus to give me a sign if Mr. Philippe da Costa is ready to intervene, or if we maybe start with the video of Vicki Mao. Mr. Zephyr Dessus, can you let us know? Okay, so I think that we can go and start with our colleague Vicki Mao, and Caroline, if you can, she couldn't make it, and with the time difference, it was very hard for our colleague in the Pacific. So we can launch a video now.
Thank you.
So maybe Joyce, you can introduce again Vicki. Philippe da Costa just connect, so that's great. Let me check.
Yes, he's online, so let's give him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Monsieur le Président, vous nous entendez?
Oui, parfait, Virginie.
C'est parfait.
Merci et bienvenue.
Merci à vous.
Donc, c'est à vous. Vous arrivez juste au moment pour votre intervention.
Ah, très bien. Ben, écoutez, Monsieur le Président, je vois à l'écran, cher Diego, querido Diego, Madame la Secrétaire Générale, chère Asha, Mesdames et Messieurs, bonjour à toutes et à tous. Bien, écoutez, il est quelque peu difficile d'intervenir après 24 heures d'échange. Je tiens tout d'abord à vous remercier pour votre invitation et au RC3 pour le lancement de cet événement qui frappe par son originalité. C'est une formidable idée qui permet de rassembler notre communauté de chercheurs au-delà de nos fuseaux horaires respectifs. Et j'espère tout simplement que cette première édition est le début d'une longue aventure pour la nuit blanche de la recherche. Non seulement car c'est l'occasion de croiser nos regards, mais aussi car nous avons besoin de ces moments partagés pour faire vivre notre mouvement et ce sentiment d'appartenance à la famille Croix-Rouge et Croissant-Rouge. Le mouvement, en fait, constitue, et nous le savons tous, une richesse inestimable, et je suis convaincu que nous pouvons faire davantage pour tirer parti des savoir-faire, des connaissances, des cultures, bref, des vécus des uns et des autres. Ces 24 heures d'échange ouvrent la porte à une coopération plus approfondie entre nos sociétés nationales et nos centres de recherche sur le long terme. Cette démarche est d'autant plus importante dans un contexte, nous le savons, où nos interdépendances se développent et où nous sommes confrontés à des crises systémiques qui frappent l'ensemble de nos sociétés. On ne peut donc plus penser la recherche comme avant. Elle doit désormais prendre en compte les interactions en descendant, en transcendant les frontières, en s'ouvrant sur l'international. Elle doit désormais prendre en compte également les interactions et face à des crises mondiales, nous devons réfléchir ensemble. Cela fait maintenant 10 ans que notre société nationale, la Croix-Rouge française, s'engage en faveur de la recherche. Nous sommes convaincus que c'est une démarche essentielle pour mieux comprendre l'évolution de nos sociétés et préparer l'avenir, à la fois pour notre organisation, mais surtout pour les personnes que nous accompagnons. Je suis moi-même universitaire, docteur en sciences de l'éducation, et j'ai l'intime conviction que la recherche, c'est une source d'ouverture et de rayonnement pour la Croix-Rouge, mais aussi de transformation de nos procédés et de nos actions. C'est par ailleurs en fait une méthode, une rigueur analytique qui contribue à enrichir la culture d'une organisation. Les échanges d'aujourd'hui, je l'ai écouté, ont porté sur le volontariat, un sujet au cœur de ce que nous sommes et de nos principes. Notre volonté à la Croix-Rouge française est de promouvoir une recherche à l'écoute des besoins de nos volontaires et du terrain. Et donc, quelque part, de promouvoir une recherche porteuse de solutions pour nos bénévoles. La meilleure illustration en est le programme Bénévolab que nous avons lancé il y a quelques années. Ce programme donne l'initiative des sujets de recherche aux bénévoles et aux salariés de la Croix-Rouge française. Il permet à un volontaire de soumettre une problématique du quotidien et d'être accompagné par un chercheur pendant une année afin de réfléchir ensemble à la question soulevée et y apporter des réponses mises à disposition de tous. Au-delà de cette démarche, il fait naître des rencontres entre monde opérationnel et académique qui sont essentielles pour faire émerger une culture commune de la recherche et du questionnement au sein de notre institution. Voici le message central que je souhaitais souligner sur la thématique du bénévolat. Il nous faut considérer le volontariat à la fois comme un objet de recherche, car c'est essentiel de comprendre l'évolution de l'engagement, notamment dans la période que nous traversons, et je pense par exemple à l'impact de la pandémie Covid-19 sur le bénévolat. Nos associations en France parlent de crise du bénévolat. Or, la volonté d'agir n'a jamais été aussi forte. Donnons-nous les moyens de trouver les modalités, les formes d'un engagement qui réponde à l'envie d'agir, à de l'impact et soit donc source d'épanouissement individuel et collectif. Enfin, nous devons aussi faire évoluer notre approche pour considérer nos volontaires comme des moteurs de recherche, en les impliquant directement dans nos travaux, nos analyses, nos collectes de données. Intégrons ainsi les volontaires dans nos centres de recherche. Invitons-les aux côtés de nos chercheurs afin de créer ces synergies nécessaires entre la recherche et l'action sur le terrain. C'est donc une richesse inestimable sur laquelle notre mouvement composé de millions de volontaires partout dans le monde peut donc s'appuyer, à la fois au sein de nos organisations, mais aussi à l'international. Continuons ainsi à promouvoir une recherche ouverte, faite de coopération entre les femmes et les hommes de nos sociétés nationales, de notre fédération, du Comité international de la Croix-Rouge. Nous avons là un véritable trésor. Prenons conscience de cette chance de pouvoir entre Français, Argentins, Kenyans, Australiens et bien d'autres encore, d'autres nationalités rassemblées par cet événement, échanger et croiser nos regards pour faire vivre notre emblème et nos valeurs. Permettez-moi de vous adresser à tous mes remerciements et aux organisateurs mes félicitations pour la tenue de cet événement et son succès. Je vous remercie et je vous souhaite de poursuivre au service des populations dans chacun de nos pays.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Thank you very much, Mr. President. I think now we can move on and launch the video of Miss Vicki Mao. I think there's a slight delay in the
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to my fellow Red Cross and Red Crescent colleagues joining us from around the world. I'm here in Naarm, Melbourne, on Wurundjeri land. My name is Vicki Mohr, and as Director of Programs at Australian Red Cross, which hosts the Red Cross Red Crescent Global Migration Lab, I'm really pleased to be here today to underscore the importance of the work of RC3, the Red Cross Red Crescent Research Consortium, in advancing the quality of research produced and utilised by the movement. Over the last 24 hours during the long night of research, we've had the opportunity to learn from and share experiences with colleagues engaged in research projects, harnessing the movement's tremendous network of volunteers. From the impact of COVID-19 on volunteerism in the Caribbean, to engaging refugee youth volunteers in Kenya, through to working with volunteers on data collection in emergencies and in conflict areas. The wealth of knowledge, expertise and experience in research across the movement is something that we can all be so incredibly proud of. The Global Migration Lab was established by the movement to strengthen its evidence base in migration-related research in order to inform the strategic direction of the movement on migration, as well as really strengthen its humanitarian diplomacy and advocacy efforts on some of the systemic drivers of vulnerability within migration. The Global Migration Lab conducts multi-country research in partnership with national societies, the Federation Secretariat and the IFRC on key issues of humanitarian concern related to migration. Volunteers are really central to the lab's research model, and without volunteers collecting data, we wouldn't be able to reach and connect with research participants from communities across every region. The lab works with National Society volunteers and staff to build their capacity in research design, methodology, ethics, data collection and analysis, but also partnering with academic institutions and volunteer research assistants and data analysts to really strengthen the quality and scope of our research projects, and also, importantly, the promotion and embedding of its findings. Being a member of the RC3 network has been of huge value and assistance to the lab's work in building relationships, in learning and sharing tools, research and knowledge, and in helping to shape our own research agenda and improve our own practice. Since the lab's establishment in 2020, it's been amazing to see the commitment and investment by movement actors to support the work of the lab. Thank you so much. Recognising the critical nature of rigorous research that builds on the experiences of people directly affected by migration to inform our efforts and our operational planning. Without this investment in research, we not only lose our capacity to learn and do better, we also risk our credibility, and we lose the opportunity to ground our actions in really strong evidence from our operations, but also from our insights across the globe. And as part of the movement, we have a unique and privileged opportunity to strengthen the quality and the scope of our research, to draw on our own evidence and data sets, to demonstrate our added value to humanitarian action and advocacy based on our local to global connections and influence. But to do this well, we need investment. Investment in time, investment in resources, investment in collaboration, and also in information sharing and exchange across the movement and with our external partners. It also means recognising that we need to do better, and we need to hold ourselves accountable in terms of how we conduct research, how we work alongside communities, and how we can support volunteers in the research process. For this reason, this 24-hour event in the work of RC3 has been so essential to not only raise the profile of the work of Red Cross Red Crescent discussion and debate on the importance of quality research and of engaging and drawing on the talents, the skills and the commitment of volunteers across the movement, underscoring our strengths, as well as considering how we might creatively consider new approaches to addressing the challenges that we face every single day. In looking ahead and beyond this long night of research, I challenge each of us and each of our respective organisations, hubs, centres, national societies to consider how we can continue to invest and strengthen this research agenda, how we can work to ensure research integrity is championed by our movement, and how we can individually and collectively uphold a standard of quality in our research that provides a really strong foundation to contribute to the mission of the movement while strengthening our engagement and support of volunteers through research. We know the potential that we have as a movement, and I'd encourage us to consider how we reach that potential in terms of our research and our evidence base. Lastly, I'd encourage all of us to take all of the incredibly rich learnings from this event and translate them into action. Research which sits on a page is of little benefit to us all. If we can work collaboratively and consistently to promote each other's research findings, to explore opportunities to use recommendations, to advocate for and influence policies and design programs aligned with our humanitarian mandate. It's by conducting and utilising research at the local, regional and global levels, and by engaging volunteers in this critical work, that we can solve challenges, identify solutions and make change for the better in communities. Thank you so much all again. Thank you for all of the learnings that you've shared with everyone over this long night of research, and wishing you all the best into the future.
We want to thank Madam Mao for her speech, and we see that President Da Costa has his hand up. So I just want to see if he has something to say. Okay, it probably was not meant to be a question. So at this time, I would like to invite Mr. Frank Mohrhauer. He's the Director of the National Society Development Services at the Federation, and he's also part of the steering committee of the RC3 group. So I would like to call on him to give us his major takeaways and a wrap-up. Thank you very much, Frank.
Thank you very much, Joyce. And after 4 high-ranking speakers, that is really difficult for me to come in here. So thank you very much, Diego, Philippe and Asha and also Mao for giving us your insights and sharing how you have made research and bring research into action. And that's something I heard from all 4 speakers, was research, evidence-based, and action. And I think that is really the core of the Red Cross, Red Crescent. If we would be only research, we would be a university, but we are action. And that is what people want to us. They want to have action. We want to be on the field, on the ground, and provide action. And I think what we've seen here in the last 24 hours is, and what we've heard also from the 4 speakers, is we can even be better in action when this action is based on evidence, when it's based on research, when we can really speak up. But it's not only the humanitarian action which makes it much stronger if we have this research and the evidence base behind it. It also, in our areas of humanitarian diplomacy, we can speak up, we can speak out, because we have the knowledge, we have the tools behind us, we have the research done. And it is something which we can really prove when we're talking on behalf of the vulnerable people, when we talk about on behalf of our volunteers, because we do have the knowledge and the research done. And I think that is also something which we must not underestimate. It's the action, it is the way that we have the knowledge, that we become a reference point for other institutions. They are looking up to us, but we also gain the trust that we need from our partners, from governments, but also from our communities and also from our volunteers. So I think that it's fantastic to hear this, that we have these research possibilities. And I'm here currently, as you might see, I'm not in my office. I'm in St. Gallen. I did a lecture this morning to students on trust and compliance here at the university. And it is so interesting when you talk to them and you describe what the Red Cross, Red Crescent movement is, when we talk about 15 million volunteers who are action, but also that we have the knowledge which is behind them, and that we can channel this, and that we can bring this to the tables and of the international organizations, and that we have this power. It is quite interesting to see each time when I do these lectures, how the young people here then are seeing the Red Cross and Red Crescent as quite a different face, because usually they only see the Red Cross, Red Crescent in their communities, but they don't see the connections and also the knowledge we generate and we have behind these parts. I would like to thank very much the 4 speakers for enlightening us about what you have been doing in research and bringing this to the table. I think this is really when I would like to remind us about our strategy 2030 as well, where we are talking about having a distributed network. Not everything has to come from Geneva. I think Geneva is changing and our task is changing, that we are really making this distributed network happening. The knowledge is with the volunteers, the knowledge is with the societies, the knowledge is in these research centers, and it is up to us as Federation, as IFRC, to connect these parts, to make them available on the various platforms, and then and also make it easy accessible, but also to give out the questions which we are having. I was delighted to hear when President from the French Red Cross said they have these questions, the possibility that volunteers can ask questions. And I think that we should do more, be able to ask questions so that the research can be done in this area of the question. And I'm also very happy to hear this specific, this long night. The first long night was about volunteering. We all talk about quite a lot that volunteering is the heart of the Red Cross. We talk about that the volunteers are our frontline workers. We're talking about that volunteering is changing. But through the research we have been done around volunteering, we can really see what is changing. We know how to tackle these changes, how to attack these changes, how to change ourselves so that we can embrace these changes. it is not anymore only that the volunteer wants to be a service provider. The volunteer we see through our research also wants to be part of the decision making, and even more, the volunteer wants to be also part of the design of the programs. And I think, Diego, you said you don't want to talk about football. I'm very happy not to talk about football, but we have seen in Argentina that we had one of those programs where volunteers are making their own program and decide what they want to do and lead them. It was through football in Argentina. And I think that is an extremely good example, which we are understanding that it is not only the design has to come from the top. No, the design can be also done from the volunteers themselves and bring this forward. So when Virginie, when I joined the steering committee, and Virginie told me about working towards a long night of research, I started to get a bit scared. I didn't know exactly how we get a whole night, 24 hours on research. But Virginie, I think you've proved that it is possible. The figures which we have here, about almost 800 participants, being 24 hours, 50 national societies included, are really great facts, speak for themselves, that when we provide these platforms, when we're connecting our volunteers and our staff, we can make these things happen. And I hope that this is not the first and only long night of research, that we also find other areas where we will have this and connect people and make sure that our research, which we have, is visible and is accessible. So Virginie, I think a big thank you, a personal thank you to you, your team, to the RC3 team, but I know how much heart and blood you have put into this project yourself. Also would like to thank the team of my department who've been there. Joyce is our great face here, leading us in this part. So also thank you very much, Joyce, and all the others who have been working from Geneva, but also around the world who've been making this happening, this long night of research. I think we got above our expectations with this. I hope that we can really collect all this knowledge which we have heard these last 24 hours, that this is somewhere well stored, accessible, and also we have the source book, which is, I think, it's a good way of collecting things and bringing them forward and make them public. As you all know, we are working on the C2 platform, which is going to be hopefully soon up and running. We have already, the communication part is already there. The collaboration part, we are still working on it. But as I always said, the RC3 will be part of this communication, the C2 platform, because working together, collecting things together, and collaborating on these areas, that is what really the power of humanity is about, the federation, and that is what we mean about a distributed network. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much, the RC3. Thank you so much, Virginie, for making this happen. And I think you all deserve a good rest, because I can imagine, even if you have not been 24 hours there, but you deserve now a good rest and celebrate the success. Thanks so much to everyone, and also to the speakers for coming in. And it was a pleasure for me to have made these closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Frank. You've tied it all in very well. We are thankful. We want to say thank you to all our speakers, our panelists, those behind the scenes, everyone who took part in this, making this possible, Nesrine, Louise, Virginie, Ajmal. Yeah, the list goes on. And so thank you so very much also for the participants. Thank you for participating. Thank you for your attention, your questions, your inputs. And we just want to say we hope to see you again at the next edition of the Long Night of Research. Thank you.